So Bitcoin has bounced after a 14% drop, but are we heading to 116, 117,000 again? Which is obviously where we fell from. But is this a sucker's rally? Will altcoins bleed over the course of September? Technically, if we break above that, could actually reignite the entire market and catch everyone off guard. So let's go through the psychology of the setup and what it could mean for the rest of the market if we do something interesting. I'll also show you how I'm going to handle my own DCA account. And if you're interested in navigating the market the right way, please do hit that subscribe button and like the video. It helps the algorithm massively. Let's talk about Bitcoin in a real simple way. Firstly, I want to talk about the obvious. We have bounced off the 618 level from the lower than $98,000 to $124, which is a new all-time high, right? So we have bounced at $108,000, $107,000. The problem we have is we are in potential suckers rally zone where we could actually get people to ape in up at this point, and then we deviate and we go lower. That's the bearish side of it, for obvious reasons, right? Because we could be looking at certain situations where if we're looking at Fibonacci sequences from that local sort of swing to this area, what is actually happening overall is we may well reject at this 0.382 level or a little bit higher and go into this area here where we've already got a bit of a green zone here. Now, obviously for me, in terms of what I look at certain situations where there could be buy zones and buy in a bit heavier. I'll explain at the end. Stick around, you'll see my DCA account. So with this situation I'm looking at, certainly as an investor, you don't want to be buying these kind of areas where we are in a downtrend, realistically. You want to be buying areas of real big, juicy support levels, right? But as I say, if we're talking two situations, we're talking green up, red down, right? We are in a downtrend, alluded to it before. If we do break up much, much higher and we get a retest of certain areas, it may well go up. But we've got to talk about what we always talk about, sentiment. We are red. Red September is often a thing. Maybe you're wrong, it might not be the case. But ultimately, going into a September where we've got potential rumblings and certain situations around data, it could be a bit of an issue and it could create volatility. The S&P 500 is also a big factor in this as well. But for me, $116,000, $117,000 is key. Absolute pivotal. We take that out and then it acts as levels of support around that area and goes higher. If it doesn't, I think you've got to wait. You've got to wait for the confirmations to 1A, it go lower, or B, it breaks out and they get momentum. Because also when we talk about the overall situation, Bitcoin dominance isn't really doing anything over the last couple of weeks. It's just kind of been flopping around this 58% mark. Not to mention, stable currency dominance here is kind of trickling up slowly, which is probably a bad sign, but ultimately it is one of those things. If it's going higher and higher, it equals risk off, which is going to be more bearish for obviously Bitcoin. And yes, total 3/BTC is trickling up because obviously Ethereum and a couple of altcoins are doing well, but it isn't really giving us that kind of vibe of going, let's go all in, let's go and make some monies, because ultimately that hasn't quite happened yet. Even though we're in a potential buy zone for altcoins, it's not really giving us that kind of woof, off we go momentum. But why are we talking suckers rally? Because it is a classic trap. Buyers will think the bottom is in, and this is where usually sellers usually unload, which is not ideal. And we have had a lot of, bad days recently. We're down 9 to 13% on Bitcoin alone. Ethereum is obviously correcting here, and Ethereum could be very, very interesting because we have made new all-time just by, Nad's bollock here. But ultimately, more importantly, guess what? We're down 15%. This could go lower. The EMA 21, for example, on the 3-day time frame is around there. Weekly time frame, it will be a hell of a lot lower. So there's definitely a situation where we could go a lot lower here on the likes of Ethereum if Bitcoin rejects, because ultimately, is it going to pick up the slack? Probably not, no, because let's be honest here, if Bitcoin shits itself, Ethereum is probably going to drop quite a bit. And in terms of the obvious in the room here, fear and greed is spiking at the lows currently. Its cycle is overcalls. The sentiment and the absolute poor attitude on X and even on YouTube is unbelievable. They disappear when Bitcoin makes new highs, but as soon as we have a little bit of a war correction, this just totally changes. It really hurts. And the long-term area around a message that I can give you is don't get caught out by the short-term noise, because it's going to absolutely destroy your long-term positioning. Any market will tell you that. By the way, if you're in the UK, Blowfin is fully open, no KYC, and you do not get your knickers in a twist because it is quite an easy platform to use. There's a link below. You get 20% back on fees as well. Not to mention an amazing welcome bonus where you save loads on spot fees. So you never know. Might get some good orders in. Let me know though. I want a bit of a discussion here. If you think this is a trap or a potential springboard for Bitcoin. But the one thing that I am doing, and if you are on my Patreon, you'll know this, I do a DCA challenge, and it's been a bit of fun for nearly a year now. I started this at the end of September last year, and I know the profit isn't amazing. It actually is better, but I have got a couple of runes in there just for shits and giggles, which hasn't actually paid off. But the rules are quite simple. It's a dollar cost average every single Sunday, and there's no futures involved. I just buy when I want to, and ultimately every single Sunday just drips and drabs get added. But as I've alluded to before, with Bitcoin, we could be looking at some really nice juicy levels, which I could add a bit more. But I also have Solana in there. Now, Solana, longer term approach here, I am in profit on Solana quite, well, I wouldn't say massively, but I am enough, but I've only just started recently. But the thing is here, this could go much higher if you look at what Ethereum has been doing. And obviously, if we get a momentum run, meme coin cycle probably will be not that far away if Bitcoin breaks up and goes higher. Whether that comes in September or October or into November, you're probably going to expect a Solana to run much higher when people return to this market, whether that is at certain points. But as you can see here, it is a journey. I aim to grow this quite significantly over the next couple of years, and I'm just going to document it on videos every now and again. But just to kind of show proof in the pudding, this is my Bitcoin holdings. I am at an average net cost of $70,000. I am up a decent chunk considering the fact that most people don't want to buy Bitcoin these days. It's quite funny to see that it has probably outperformed most people's portfolios with very minimal effort and quite realistic. So yeah, 116 and 117,000 is a springboard kind of area where we should be looking to go higher. But I think that's unlikely currently unless something really changes. But the rejection will equal a sucker's rally, which is a problem. We could be looking at $105,000 and $99,000, which for some people may be an amazing buying opportunity, certainly for myself with the DCA account. But do not let the short-term noise mess with your long-term positions. This is just analysis. This is my overall opinion, so don't cry. But more importantly, dominance is showing something. It is actually quite slow. The rotation's probably stopped for a little bit. The ETF inflows have slowed down quite a significant chunk. We are going into September. We are into potential rate cut territory where a lot of people may genuinely just sit on their hands. But there you go. If you enjoyed, please do like, subscribe and comment. And more importantly, watch this video that I'm recommending. It may well help you with bigger analysis.